There was empires in Africa called Kush, Timbuktu, where every race came to get books. My success to you, even if you wish me the opposite. Sooner or later, we'll all see who the prophet is.
No, but seriously, the conversation we're having here is educational.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Good learning. If you never knew this before, you know it now. And you know, this is what GKTV are about. We're trying to bring these type of conversations on platforms where they'll never get aired. You know, when you was on the TV program, they never gave you this time. You can come in, intro, okay, chop, 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 chop. See you later, black woman. You got a lot of issues. You're not getting any money. We're going to an ad break. This is not happening over here at GKTV. Okay, so the third part of the program.
Let's look at rehabilitation, which there's no real sort of official definition in terms of international law, which is my sort of strength and specialism around reparations, but it's self-explanatory in terms of English, to rehabilitate, but it includes measures to help restore a people as well, and it might include things like resourcing and servicing in terms of psychotherapeutic, psychosocial services. Our people are very much in the system and are very much consumers and users of social services, but not social services that are culturally appropriate for us. They do not recognize our history and the fact that, you know, oppression is not the same for us. It's, you know, you have to have a certain degree of knowledge about who we are, what it is we've lost, to be able to really work with our people. And if we look at the places where we're most affected, say like in the mental health system, you know, why we have particular health conditions disproportionately, the diabetes, the hypertension, all of that. So some of these services, culturally appropriate services, would be to deal with our problems, yes, and to have people who were qualified and trained and knowledgeable and have that expertise in our situation. And we've produced many of them, many brilliant scholars and practitioners in this field. However, it is also the case that we do have an entitlement because of what has been done to us. And at the moment, we are being deprived access.
Just to yes, in that journey.
Being, you know, deprived and being hindered from accessing the resources that we legitimately are entitled to utilize for ourselves. I must emphasize, however, that the reparations, that we look at reparations in terms of internal and external. And internal is the most important, which is the self-repairs. We have to be about rehabilitating ourselves anyway, regardless of whether anyone else accepts that they have an obligation or they're forced to meet some of our needs in terms of, well, this is a program that we're already running, this is how much it costs, we are entitled to that. We shouldn't be subject to austerity measures. Our people shouldn't be.
No, we've been through enough austerity.
We've been through enough.
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things we're talking about. And ultimately, it is about us rebuilding not our families, our communities, our nation, and our sense of nationhood and peoplehood, and firstly, the institutions that we are going to require. But right now in England, if we want to develop our own, say, family counselling service, that's going to take resources. That needs to come from somewhere. So we are already resourcing ourselves, but we are not able to do it to the level that needs to be done in order to stem the tide of the Maangamizi that is a continuum. And we haven't got the time to wait until we build up that strength. So we must always be putting that external focus. And some people will only work on the self-repairs bit, and that's okay, because it's the self-repairs and the internal community building of eliminating our own weaknesses amongst us that is actually going to build the strength, the capacity, the determination, the agency, and ultimately the power where we can enforce our will on others.
Okay, I get that, and I'm glad you put it that way, because obviously you're going to have people in the community who ask those type of questions, and it's until they get a full understanding of what's trying to be done here. Okay, we're going to do the fourth fourth and fifth one. I'm trying not to question too much on them, so we can move on. There's a couple of other aspects I really want to touch on. So the fourth point.
Fourth one is under the UN principles on a right and a remedy. A right to reparations and a remedy, is satisfaction. And satisfaction is really all the measures that we need to put in place or have put in place to feel satisfied that we've had some level of redress. And that might include changing the curriculum. Truth, public truth, because we might know the truth about who we are, but not all of us do, because we're miseducated. And, most of us have gone to probably mainstream schools where we have not been in control of the curriculum. So that's important. It might include things like commemoration days where we honour our own, we honour our ancestors, we honour our liberators. And it's not that we're not doing these things anyway, yes we are. But part of what all peoples do is that they seek to transform their environment and in fact their world. We have to get back to being big players in the world again and not just seeing ourselves as just being confined to one community centre or one country because that's where we're allowed to be. We are the mothers and fathers of human civilization. So wherever we are, we should see our image and likeness represented. And that's important in terms of also teaching others, because most other people, non-African people, will have a perception of who we are. They could live in Iceland, but they will see in us, because they've been affected by the media images and the negative representation of who we are and the stereotypes, will perceive us negatively. So it's important that we also speak our truths and have our truths manifested in everything, in the edifices, in the institutions, everywhere around us, so that our children can grow up with that sense of pride in who they are and not feel inferior and not be forced to venerate the ancestors of those who have been oppressing us and subjugating us for years.
And this is what we mean by the rise of divine feminine. If people want to know what do you mean by the rise of divine feminine, we recognize in this day and time that the feminine energy has to come back into play. We have to go back to the people, to the matriarchal societies which we once had. Why? Absolutely. Because look at, I've had brothers and I've spoken to many different brothers over many different subjects, this subject alone, but the female energy, the nurturers, you feel the passion, you understand? Now, you understand? Yeah. And it's not said from a point of I've read books on this, okay? Which men tend to do things from a logical aspect. It's a feeling, a knowing, and that's a very important part. And that's part because
I read books too.
No, but what I'm saying is, men sometimes read books, and it's all about the logic when we've got different aspects.
No, you're absolutely right. That's part of the repair.
That's part of the repair.
That's part of the rebalancing of our power.
A matriarchal society to come and live amongst
patriarchal
society.
And that harms men as well in the way in which that.
And it's not us. We're not Greco-Romans. That's their thing, and they're into that kind of thing because they play football. They touch each other's bottoms when they play football. And all kind of funny behaviours, which is for a different show. But that's definitely not us. Okay, so these are important parts. In regards to
the final one is guarantees of non-repetition, which for me is the most important. Because the guarantees of non-repetition are how we ensure that this Holocaust, this Maangamizi, never happens again. It's continuing. It hasn't stopped, in truth, from when it started. And how some of us have conceptualized what guarantees of non-repetition. In kind of the UN framework and a lot of other nations, they might talk about holding perpetrators to account, other measures to kind of correct the wrongs and correct the national narrative. But that's not sufficient for us. And every people has to be able to shape and fashion a repair process that is proportionate, that is adequate, that is satisfactory to our culture and also who we are in history, but who we are still to be. We have not even yet fully become truly who we are supposed to be. So we have to look at this in a futuristic way. And the notion then of guarantees of non-repetition, in truth, some of the most ancient models around reparations have always been around nation building. Because what were we deprived of? We didn't just lose a paycheck. We didn't just lose some diamonds and some minerals. We lost a world. We lost a world and we lost our place and our status in that world. Whereas we were the first, it's almost now like we are the last. But we know what the prophecy says about the last will become the first again. And so the guarantees of non-repetition are about shaping a nation state in accordance with our ancient, indigenous, African ethical principles and values, and the highest of which we recognize as being ma'at. So imagine an Africa that was premised, that was governed on the principles of ma'at. Even in Kemet, it wasn't fully achieved. Yes? Just like so-called democracy was an ideal. It was not achieved historically. But we must, they say where there is no vision, the people perish. We must always aspire to the heights and the best of who we can be. And so ma'at, and then we also connect that to Ubuntu, which comes out of the peoples of Southern Africa, which recognizes that we are people through other people. That our humanity is connected to others' humanity. If I dehumanize you, I am dehumanizing me. And so that ensures that we don't then end up becoming that which we are resisting. And we do not internalize the negative mindset of the oppressors. That we ensure that we have to become a people who set this world right. Who, we have in Kemet, Professor Karenga teaches about reparations in the verb of Sarujta. He talks about raising up that which is in ruins, restoring that which is broken, and so forth. So we are going back to that. And ultimately, the true repair will be about us reclaiming and regenerating and renewing our indigenous knowledge systems. Because that is what we have lost. Our knowledge of how to govern ourselves, the science of how we engage with others, the science of warfare, the science of mating, all of these sciences which we did in a mathematical way, we have lost knowledge of. And we have to reclaim that because the mindset that we are adopting is leading us further into this abyss of, disrepair. And so it's a huge challenge for us to renew our knowledge systems and our connection to our divinity, that which ultimately gave us strength, because we walk the earth as literally gods. And we're not doing that now. And I don't mean it in a very, I mean it in a true sense.
In a true sense.
In a true sense of what it means.
And they knew that.
And that's what we have to get back to. If we were to truly restitute ourselves, and we're saying that the sovereign nation state, we've conceptualized it in PARCO, the Pan-African Reparations Coalition in Europe that I represent, as Ma'at Ubuntu. So we're not talking about a United States of Africa, which the AU are saying they're hoping to bring about by 2017, which I doubt, which is uniting the colonial borders, maintaining, those borders that separate peoples. And so much of the conflict and fratricidal warfare we're seeing is because people are being denied their right to associate with their family members. And we have to get back to this. We also need this super state that can encompass all of us as people of African diaspora who have been scattered across the four corners of the earth. We are a powerful nation. A powerful nation. We're not minority ethnics. We're not BMEs. We are a people. And a huge part of the self-repair process is renewing and regenerating our peoplehood, restoring our sense of nation and identity, and in truth, going beyond even some of the nations that we had before, because we've learned other things now. Our sojourn has meant that we've learnt from others, other peoples, other African peoples, and we have to now fashion an African identity that is able to incorporate the best of all of our people's traditions.
Now, this is where, I'm 100% in agreement with what you're speaking, and we've just covered the 5 points, and you finished that quite eloquently, and, I hope people listening, truly understand which was implied just there. And this is something which is very close to my heart personally, in regards coming from the background from which I come from within the Holy Catholic Church. All the principles that you mentioned in there, we have. And I say that in regards to, for example, I touched on the real silhouette, which is religion, economics, labour, sex, gender, which is a very important part. Once you have sex, gender, you can move into the education. Well, to tell you, it's like this. The religious part, and when I say religion, I don't mean religion as Europeans give us the term religion, though the principle of religion is very powerful. That's why it's so powerful in the world today. But remembering the African roots of it, which once you have that in place, it allows you to then start building your economy, because you have people who are gathered for one specific reason, for whatever reason it may be. Once you take back the identity theft which has occurred to us, and you put those practices back in place. Those cultural practices, those spiritual practices, because it's the spirituality which makes us the great beings we are. That ability by way of our melanin to be able to access the divine, to access aspects of the mind which other people can't access, which they're jealous of. And the whole point of why this whole reparation movement's coming to play, the whole point of why we ended up in this situation, because they had to find a way of bringing down these gods, as to speak, and then that practice of identity theft.
Yes.
So, once you have that in place, you're able to then develop your economy. An economy allows you then to create labour. Labour then allows you to be in a better position to give birth to children who have, because you've got the other principles in place, those other 3 in place first, allows you to then create children which become balanced in balanced environments. Absolutely. Then move on, once you've got the gender, that sex, and the sex is important, because it's not sex as in sex which is lust, but according to the Min priesthood in ancient Tamaray, we had a whole science behind it to do with tonal vibration and so on and so forth. Once having that in place, the gender, you can then move into education, because you now have to raise, but you've got the resources by way of the labour and the economy to then have the education. That education allows you to educate people legally, to start creating systems, but not laws based on their laws, but as you said, the laws of Ma'at, which govern all these principles. Then you move into security or war, which is the or the security aspect of who and what to now begin to secure your state that you build amongst the people. And then you can then move on to entertainment, because by way of TV, by way of music and all these different things, to start telling our stories, on into the politics, which is the way that we govern ourselves. So this was not us who created this, is something which we use as a mantra, but it ties in because when it comes to identity, and this is where we have a problem as a people, meaning some people will look at this and think, red, black and green, I don't like red, black and green. That means you're part of that. Why isn't it red, gold and green? Someone else looks at the red thing and goes, well, I don't like that symbol. That symbol is maybe a Ghanaian symbol. I'd rather have a symbol which, you got Egyptians. I'm only into Egypt. I don't know why, but and these are the things, even amongst the conscious movement, which become problems. And how we identify, they always say, look, for anything you go back to the root. So you'll see, but where does the root of this come from? Where does and once you find where these roots come from, and the identifying thing between these roots, then that deals with the problem in language. Not only language in European languages and going through his spell, but understanding African languages. Because some people say, well, we're going to pick up a bit of Swahili. Some people say, well, we're going to pick up a bit of Igbo. Some people say we're going to pick up a bit of... And then they base their whole organisation around, as opposed to, whoa, none of these were the original. You have to go back to get to the original. Even though you will use those words because they're necessary, we have to go back. Go back.
And fetch, that's right.
Yeah. So, but in regards to the reparations, and as I said, I was interviewing a brother who you work with, Brother Kwaku,
yes.
At the African Liberation Day up in Birmingham. And he changed my mind more to understanding the principle of reparations, and more so even today with yourself, and hopefully to people who are watching this, but you now understand what this reparations is about, exactly what it stands for, exactly how it can galvanize the people to come together. If you're not going to come together for anything, at least try to get involved in this, because some people may be sitting there thinking, well, how is this going to work? It works because of the education. Just sitting here just now with Esfa, I have learned a lot in regards to what's going on across the world, how people are starting to work together and still live ordinary lives. Not everybody's walking around with a head wrap saying, for the revolution. Many people are living their everyday lives but think, well, I can support it in this way. You have a march. Well, I don't want to change much about myself, but I can at least attend a march to show that solidarity, to show that support. We've had a great interview, as I've said before. We're wrapping up right now. Definitely go and check out the Facebook page, the March August. You can do that on your phone right now, no excuses. Get involved with that. If you do not have the time to get involved, then at least spread the word and let other people know what's going on. Remember, this is happening across the world. GKTV are here bringing you the best of what's going on in the black community. This is one of the most important things happening in the black community in UK at this current time. If you take the time to watch the whole programming of this whole interview, the information you're going to learn on this is phenomenal. We're definitely going to be keeping in contact with what Esther's doing and the whole movement, and bring you updates of where it's going on, how you can get involved. I would love you to do that with us at GKTV.
I'd love to. Thank you.
As you know, GKTV is about building those relationships in the community. Once again, economics is a very important part. If you just don't have the time, can't get involved, but financially you can support the organisation and the things that they do, maybe the literature, help get things printing costs and so on and so forth. But
yes.
All these things are required. So there is definitely a way that you can help, and GKTV, we're going to do our part the way that we can by having that media platform. So do keep it locked to GKTV. I am the Cryptic Minister. You can find me every single Monday on the show www.supremefmlive.ning.com on the hours of 9 PM to 11 PM. You can come check me out on the show, so you can check out on the same station our good presenter brother Duamatif. Do go to the gotkush YouTube page and subscribe. Very important we get that subscription membership up, because when the platform drops you want to be the first to know about it. Plus we're going to be having some exclusive bits and pieces that you'll only be able to see on the gotkush website. So look, there's a lot of things happening in the future for gotkush, so make sure you keep it locked. Look, it's a late evening. We've got lots of things to do. We hope you've enjoyed the whole of this production, what we've done so far. Once again, I always like to say big thanks going out to the editing team, the production team behind the scenes, the research and development team, all the team that make GKTV that which it is. We are a big family here. We say Namastu, which simply means we bow to the divinity within you, because we recognize you are divine beings having a physical experience, as opposed to physical beings looking for a divine experience. So with that we say Namastu, and do something great, do something caring this week after watching this program. Let's share that love around. This is GKTV.
Fight the system and its ways, don't be afraid. Just be the change. And with all this people power, we'll use peace for power. Hey.